Hey, listen, have you ever heard of a guy, a UC Berkeley professor and economic historian? His name is Carlo Cipolla. Either Cipolla or Cipolla. I think it's Cipolla, Cipolla. And in 1976, he wrote a piece that exposed what he called the appalling dangers and the range of destruction of the stupids. The stupids, that's right. Now, you've heard me talk before about ignorance is curable, stupid is terminal. And I believe that. Now, I have never read what Mr. Cipolla or Professor Cipolla said all those years ago. But by God, I've come to that conclusion just from being an observer. Perhaps you have too. And he came up with 5 insights about people he calls the stupids. Insights or laws. And all of it, I'm going to share them with you in a moment, but he talks about the stupids as being the very worst people because of their willful ignorance. Willful ignorance. God, how long have I been talking about that? And how willful ignorance causes damage to themselves as well as other people without any gain in what they say they're interested in. That's what stupidity will do. Take a look at the MAGA freaks in this country. And Robert Becker, writing at Nation of Change, brought this to our attention. And again, I'd never heard of Carlo Cipolla until I read Becker's piece here. But Becker points out that the stupids are people who, they may be sitting on a cliff in their car, and they decide to test whether reverse gear works. Stupids are also people who have no doubt that vaccines are way more dangerous than getting vaccinated and protecting everyone, even themselves, right? Stupids, some of them think that bleach or household chemicals can destroy viruses. Some think that magical thinking impacts reality. These are what the stupids do. Some stupids think that a disgraced president can decertify state secrets years after leaving office just by thinking he's done it, right? And some stupids think that your side losing an election proves it must be rigged. Or their side losing an election. Of course, we have the stupids out there right now. There are people who are saying now, I think the woman running for governor of Arizona, if I got this right, she said if she loses, it's because the election was rigged. This is stupid personified. They're all around us, these people. Now, in the sense of that what they do is so unfailingly destructive to themselves and everybody around them, then that means that the stupids are morally worse than criminals or predators, because criminals or predators think they have something to gain by their bad acting. But stupids, no, there's nothing for them to gain. It's just destruction. Trump, the orange vomit, he's the criminal who makes himself richer and richer by hoodwinking his fan base of stupids who are ready to donate and fight what the orange vomit calls rigged elections. But all they're doing is filling the orange vomit's wallet. And the truth is that these stupids that idolize this criminal fucker Trump, that these donors devastate a workable electoral system, and they don't gain any real world deliverables. They don't get anything for this. They don't get election wins or jobs or pensions or service or economic growth. They really have no measurable gain. And that fact speaks directly to the position the stupids have put themselves in. Now, there's a second insight, and that adds that stupids are not only, there are millions of them, we know this, and irrational. But worst of all, the stupids are incapable of changing. Remember what I've said over and over. Ignorance is curable. Stupid is terminal. So, since they're incapable of change, Professor Cipolla argued that there are no defenses or specific solutions to stupidity, which is kind of a scary notion to me. But by definition, the stupids have closed minds, and so closed that they're unaware that they're stupid, which makes them unable to be educated. You see the difference between stupid and ignorant, right? The stupids have this incredible belief that they're right, and no one, no logic, no evidence will change their minds. Nothing. So the only way a society can avoid being crushed by this burden of stupidity that we have in this country right now is for us non-stupids to work even harder than we may already be working to offset the downside of this horrific widespread stupidity in this country. Can we do it? That's a good question. Oh, and by the way, when you hear the pauses, it's me muting the mic again because I still have this horrendous cough. Jesus, it won't leave me alone. All right, let me share with you the 5 laws that Professor Carlo Cipolla wrote about almost 50 years ago, 1976. Okay? Here's the first law. Everyone underestimates routinely the number of stupid individuals that are out there. And he explains that no matter how many stupids are suspected by the less stupid, we invariably lowball the total. And this problem is made worse by assumptions that certain people must not be stupid because, well, they perform jobs, they look normal, they survive a few educational hurdles, but that's hardly the case. Therefore, Law 2, the probability that a certain person is stupid is totally independent of any other characteristic of that person. Okay? So Professor Cipolla said that the variable of stupidity remains constant. I like that. The variable of stupidity remains constant across all population subgroups, every visible category: gender, race, nationality, education level, income, all of it has, every one of those categories contains within it a fixed percentage of stupid people. Stupids include some college professors, economists, politicians, truck drivers, ditch diggers, CEOs, especially CEOs. And every nation can talk about its own stupids as if it were some sort of normal outgrowth of genetics. Every country has a certain percentage of stupids. And we cannot know the exact number of stupids without violating the first law that Cipolla put out there. Remember the first law: everyone routinely underestimates the number of stupid individuals in circulation. Okay? Law 3. A stupid person is a person who causes losses to another person or to a group of persons while himself, the stupid person, getting no gain out of his stupidity and probably suffering losses because of his stupidity. This is Professor Cipola's golden law of stupidity. Stupids inevitably cause problems for others without what they're doing serving their own self-interest. And the professor pointed out that stupids are especially injurious because reasonable people struggle to understand how others are capable of such unreasonable behavior. I find myself doing that all the time. You hear me on this podcast, trying to figure out what the hell. As the professor pointed out, intelligence people understand the logic, say, of a bandit or a crook or a deceiver or a liar because they follow rational measures, intelligent people. However, criminals act wholly out of self-interest, which when they're acting out of self-interest, that means both the ends and the means are fairly obvious of what they're doing. You can predict criminality. You can even foresee it. We know that. And you can defend against these obvious criminal acts. Police and the courts are designed to counter antisocial behavior. And they're also designed to come up with rational punishment, like fines or penalties, even loss of freedom. And that's all based on the idea that the criminal, after all, might reform. And the alternative remains unchanged. Lawbreaking will generally incur a response. Unless, I might add parenthetically to all this, unless you're Donald Trump. Now, stupids do not fit any rational order. And law 3, which is a stupid person, is a person who causes loss to another person or a group of persons, while the stupid makes no gain at all. So stupids don't fit any rational order, and law 3 makes predictable or anticipation of their stupid acts impossible. Stupids will come and harass you for no reason, no advantage, without any plan or scheme, and at the most improbable times and places. We're facing that now in so many there's so many polling places where these stupids have been told, well, you've got to go and make sure that nothing is going on there that will take votes away from our beloved Christian terrorists. They're stupids. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. So they show up at polling places. You know, I've said many times, if I'm standing in line to vote here in Metro Atlanta, and somebody who is not, officially like a poll worker comes up and tries to challenge my right to vote, the first thing that's going to happen is I will try to turn that person away from me, by turning myself away or just trying to ignore them. But if they persist, I'm going to wind up in being arrested, because if they insist, if somebody tries to interfere with my right to vote, I will punch their fucking lights out. And I've said this before. I'm not trying to sound bold and ooh, Malloy, you're such a man. No. I'm just stating what to me is perfectly obvious. If someone wants to interfere with my right to vote, unless it's an elected official who wants to say, hey, Malloy, let me see your card again. Okay. But if it's one of these so-called Christian terrorist poll watchers, get ready to lose your fucking teeth. I mean, it's that simple. There's nothing like a quick elbow in somebody's upper jaw. And it's amazing how many teeth will fall out as a result of that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Malloy, you're such a badass. No, I'm not. I'm just saying. So you have no rational way of telling if and when and how the stupids might strike you or attack you. So you got to be prepared. And the irrationality of stupids removes good responses for the more rational victim, who is often open to surprise ambush, like if you're standing on line to vote. And in effect, therefore, being at the mercy of the stupids. Thus, we come to law 4, which is non-stupid people, that would be you, me, always underestimate the damaging power of stupid individuals. Now, the professor went on to say, in particular, non-stupid people constantly forget that at all times and places and under any circumstances, dealing with stupids turns out to be a costly mistake. What I just said, me putting a very strong elbow move into somebody's front jaw, front teeth, would be a stupid mistake because we know what's going to happen. I am going to be charged with assault. So we underestimate stupids, putting us at double peril. And so we come to the 5th and final law. Law number 5, stupids are the most dangerous people because they violate expectations and cannot be reformed. And there's a corollary to that. Stupids are more dangerous than criminals. You can't fix stupids. What saves some societies from collapse is the ability of the non-stupids, people like you and me, to compensate for the damage caused by stupids. And the professor adds that successful societies thrive whatever percentage of stupids by counterbalancing irrational loss and maximizing gains. So the point is, in order to defeat these stupids, they're like an invading alien force. The only thing we non-stupids can do is to, what the professor said, maximize the gains that we're seeking. And in so many instances in this country, it's by turning out to vote and then refusing to accept a bullshit story that the vote was tainted or stolen or manipulated by, the non-stupids. So first you have the intelligent person. That would be you. And by God, that would be me. Our actions benefit both ourselves and others. When we talk about global warming, when we talk about a person's right to privacy, a woman's right to sovereignty over her own body, we are taking action that benefits us and others. Of course, a person has a right to privacy. Of course, we have to deal with global warming. Okay? And then there's the criminal. He benefits himself at the expense of others. Bank robber, a mugger. The non-stupid are a flawed and inconsistent bunch. That's because sometimes we act intelligently, sometimes we are selfish bandits, sometimes we act helplessly and are taken advantage of by others, and sometimes we're a bit of both. We are. But in comparison, stupids are paragons of consistency because they act at all times, think about these maggot bastards, with unyielding idiocy. In fact, as said earlier, consistent stupidity is the only consistent thing about stupids. And this is why they're so dangerous. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well.
That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.